Warlords of Draenor.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby.
One thing I wanted to point out that I found a little confusing that maybe I was hoping you guys could help clarify with me. It says about Hellscream. In this world, it says here, the Burning Legion had not yet fully taken this world in its grip. The orcs were uncorrupted. This is alternate Draenor. Still retaining their light brown skin. Garrosh himself had not yet been born and never would be, as his mother had died some time before. In this world, in this timeline, Garrosh did not exist. This is a little confusing, because remember the Lightbound orc scenario? Where we go and we work with Grommash Hellscream, and then the Exarch says that Exarch Hellscream is part of their forces? Grommash's son? I mean, we all took that to mean Garrosh. But if Garrosh doesn't exist, yeah, an alternate version of him, that's what I thought. But so then I'm wondering, is the Magheart orc scenario the one that we go to? Let's go back here. Garrosh Hellscream is the son of Grommash Hellscream. In alternate Draenor, Garrosh had not yet been born and couldn't be, as his mother had already died. In this world, in this timeline, Garrosh did not exist. So what you guys interpreted that as was maybe a different partner in a new child. Because that's where I got confused. I was like, wait, I guess I always assumed that the child would have been Garrosh, but I guess I didn't realize that Garrosh didn't exist in the alternate Draenor timeline, which makes sense, because then there would have been two Garroshes. It would have been like Spider-Man, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Like, you guys are saying there was no Thrall, there was a daughter instead. And so I guess I always just assumed that Exarch Hellscream was Garrosh. But it's not. The Magheart scenario is like 30 years after Warlords. That's the thing, which would have given Grommash plenty of time to find a new partner and to birth a new son. Could be female. I think they say son. No, I don't think it could be female. I think they use the word son. At some point, he had a son who joined the Lightbound and rose to the ranks of Exarch. According to the wiki, so it's not like that's hard canon. Would be funny if he named his kid Garrosh after his kid that came from an alternate reality. Well, I don't think Garrosh ever revealed to him who he was. Same way that Thrall never revealed who he was to his father. Duratan. Unless he paid for a name and race changed. So another thing is that Garrosh demanded an explanation from the Bronze Dragon. Kairos explained that he had brought them both here to find allies in the fight against the Burning Legion. By recruiting orcs from alternate realities, they could create an army vast enough to drive back the Legion. The thing that I was confused about with this so in the real timeline, Gul'dan comes to Azeroth, and at the behest of Sargeras, raises the tomb of Sargeras from beneath the ocean, right? It says in this book, and we'll get to this point, that Sargeras' lieutenants were obviously not happy with Gul'dan, and they wanted to flay him, but Sargeras made them wait. And it was only after Gul'dan had raised the tomb of Sargeras from the ocean that they allowed him to be killed. So it almost came off to me like Sargeras, obviously, they always knew that Gul'dan would betray them. I think it's interesting that Sargeras, it almost seems deliberate that he needed Gul'dan, obviously, to raise the tomb. And then they were like, okay, do away with him. But then from this alternate Draenor, this just kind of like gets me, dude. I get confused because the Legion spans all timelines and realities, right? So the Archimond that we deal with is Archimond, like the Archimond. Yeah, our Gul'dan was very selfish at that point. He wanted to steal the scepter, and he got fucked up for it. Yeah, he was going to betray the Legion. But again, Sargeras intentionally allows him to live long enough that he raises the tomb, and then he allows the demons to tear him apart. So I'm just trying to point out, it seems like Sargeras wanted him pretty much for that, but knew that he would betray him. And then what happened? Alternate Garrosh, or alternate Gul'dan, comes to our reality, and Kil'jaeden manages to convince him to follow through with the ritual of giving Sargeras Illidan's body. So when I look at it this way, it almost seems like original Gul'dan and alternate Gul'dan, the importance and their distinction is that one of them made a different choice than the other. And the choice that happened allowed for the second part of that thing to be told. You know what I'm saying? Like, alternate Gul'dan was manipulated partly by the experience that Kil'jaeden had and what had happened to original Gul'dan in order to convince alternate Gul'dan to be more reliable and loyal, which worked, because then Gul'dan took all that stuff, got his soul, or his body, went to the Nighthold, did all that stuff, right? That Gul'dan carried out the mission. You saying Sargeras planned this far ahead to use 2 Gul'dans to fully make his plan come to fruition? I don't know if he planned that or if it was a contingency. Because you have to think about the order of events. Rathian was terrified that the Legion coming back would destroy the world, and so Rathian's concept was either the Horde or the Alliance should overthrow one another so that they can unite as one faction to face the Legion. That didn't happen with Garrosh's trial, so he and Kairos and all that shit worked together to get Garrosh to alternate Draenor. There, Garrosh was meant to put together this Iron Horde, a horde that frankly looks much more similar to Sargeras than the Burning Legion's horde ever did. I'm just going to say it. The Iron Horde seems like the kind of horde that Sargeras would want to have commanded. I'm just going to say it. The metal, the black, the orange fire, all that stuff. That seems way more Sargeras than the Fel and stuff like that, but I can't, that's just my interpretation. Who cares? Anyway, and so he's supposed to put together this Iron Horde, this true horde or whatever, and that is meant to come back and take Azeroth, and then it will stand as one unified force to fight the Burning Legion. That's the whole point of WoD and why Kairos and why Rathian and all them did that. First thing Garrosh does is kill Kairos, of course, and then takes the Vision of Time from him or whatever. So that's fucking great. So that didn't go well. So it just makes me wonder, so Rathian, who I can connect to Deathwing, who I can connect to Sargeras and Argus, is basically the core reason for which Garrosh got to alternate Draenor alongside Kairos, who was working with the Infinites, to build a super army to come back to Azeroth to fight the Demonic Legion when they invaded. However, the heroes of Azeroth, this expedition came through, dismantled the Iron Horde, stopped the Burning Legion, but the final ploy of the Burning Legion is for Archimond to send Gul'dan to Azeroth. So all in all, Gul'dan didn't mobilize a mega force like they did on the original Draenor. They didn't essentially mobilize any force at all. They stayed centralized to Tanaan Jungle. They were doing the Dark Portal stuff, yes, but then they were enslaved by the Iron Horde to build their Dark Portal, which they were then used to power. So it's almost like a reversal of almost everything. And this is only because Garrosh brought the Black Fuse Company's technology, Iron Stars and weapons like that, to alternate Draenor, which then Blackhand and the Blackhand clan, Blackrock clan, Blackrock? Right? Were able to use to make all these weapons to do all of this. So in this way, we stop what would have occurred. The whole stuff with Ner'zhul is completely fucking different. I just think, it's just interesting that after all of this, the main thing is that we got alternate Gul'dan, who is used to finish what the original Gul'dan started. And that only worked. This is where your brain's really gonna break. Like I said, that only worked because Kil'jaeden had previously manipulated, or not Kil'jaeden, the Legion and Hull and Orkamon primarily, I think, manipulated Gul'dan in such a way that that experience with OG Gul'dan was the reason how Kil'jaeden was able to manipulate the other Gul'dan. Like, that's mind-breaking. Like, the fact that the events of the original Gul'dan was used to manipulate alternate Gul'dan to do the thing that OG Gul'dan wouldn't do is like, dude, that's fucking gigabrain. Like, what the fuck? Maybe Gul'dan's part was only to bring Illidan to the seat of the Pantheon so Sargeras can use him or something to escape? No. It's explicitly stated what his goal was. He was to take Illidan's body to the top of the Nighthold and use that power to open a rift in time and space that would allow Sargeras' power to come through and take over Illidan's body. That's exactly what was done. That is exactly what's stated to have been done, and that's the entire plot of Legion. So, at the end of the day, though, that's what Gul'dan is led to believe is the case, right? That's what... So, let me play into what you're saying. Technically, what you're saying could be true. That Sargeras' true deliberate plot was to get Illidan to the seat of the Pantheon. I think that that's very likely, because at the end of the day, Illidan is said to be there to make sure Sargeras doesn't escape. I'm just gonna say it, that also inversely implies that he would be the reason why Sargeras could escape. Would he not? Does that not imply that he would be the one in control of that occurring? And if that were the case, then Illidan ain't there by a fucking accident. You know? He's there for a reason. And remember, what was Sargeras' original plot? He wanted to expunge Illidan's soul from his body entirely, and he wanted to use Illidan as a vessel. It's pretty wild. Rat Guys, thank you very much for the Prime sub for 2 months. Appreciate that. Let me read this. I want to continue some of this shit. Shadowmoon Valley. Velen had been granted a vision by Anaru, a being of purest, holy light, who showed him the truth of the Legion's plot on Argus. As his fellow leaders were transformed into demon lords, Velen and his followers boarded the Genadar, a mighty dimensional vessel powered by 3 Naru, and fled Argus. Eons passed as they traveled the cosmos. An unbelievable amount of time has passed, and I don't think people realize how much time has really passed. It says here, until the refugee ship crash-landed on Draenor. Calling themselves the Draenei, or Exiled Ones, they built holy temples throughout Shadowmoon Valley. Just Shadowmoon Valley, though, is well, originally. Their ageless society prospered there, and though they had occasional tension with the local orcs, they had never known war. Not until the coming of the Iron Horde. The Alliance force, accompanied by Yrel, had only just arrived in Draenei lands and barely had time to build a proper garrison when the valley's native Shadowmoon orcs launched a major assault against their Draenei neighbors. The village of Embari was quickly overrun, but thanks to help from the Alliance, the Draenei withstood the initial assault. In the chaos, however, Yrel's beloved sister, Samara, was taken by Ner'zhul, leader of the Shadowmoon clan. Alongside other captives, the Alliance reassured Yrel that they would find her sister, and set to work organizing the Draenic forces for a counterattack against the Iron Horde. As Ner'zhul returned to the Shadowmoon village of Shazgul with his prisoners, he was terrified. Though he had thinned the Draenei's numbers and taken captives, this was not the clear-cut victory his war chief, Grommash, had wanted, and he would not suffer weakness or failure. If the Draenei could not be defeated soon, Grommash would be coming for Ner'zhul's head, and likely the destruction or dissolution of his entire clan. High above the valley, a once holy being, a Naru, drifted aimlessly across the sky. Long ago, this Naru and its fellows had granted Velen his vision of the Legion's insidious plot and accompanied the Draenei on their journey across the great dark beyond, acting as both guides and protectors. But as the ages passed, these holy beings began to weaken. Much like a star. This line fucked my brain up. Listen to this. Much like a star, the Naru's radiant energies would dim, and in the absence of light, unholy void energies would form instead. The Naru that drifted across the skies of Draenor, Kara, had once accumulated enough void energy in its body to clash with the other Naru protecting the Draenei, and in a final act of kindness so they didn't work uniformly anymore, it convinced Velen to eject it from their vessel, far enough away that it would do no further harm. Velen had done just that, leaving Kara floating in the upper atmosphere. For millennia, Kara hung harmlessly overhead, even as its body continued to accumulate void energy. In time, the Shadowmoon Orcs became accustomed to its presence and began calling it the Dark Star. Ner'zhul knew that with enough unholy energy, he could summon the Dark Star down to Draenor's surface. That would bring the terrible creature crashing into Karabor, annihilating the temple, the city, and all who lived there. Gathering such a large amount of void energy would require sacrifices, however. This is very interesting. Ner'zhul ordered his warriors to bring their captive Draenei to the Anguish Fortress. There, he would ritually slaughter the captives and offer their blood to call down the Dark Star. The Draenei and their allies were still recovering from the initial assault and were ill-prepared for a fight. But they remained committed to the captives Ner'zhul had taken in his assault on Embari. While the bulk of the Draenei continued to defend Karabor, Yrel volunteered to lead a group of Rangari, a specialized group of scouts to recover the prisoners, including her sister. To move forward here, after escaping Shazgul, the Alliance found an unlikely ally in Rul Khan, a former member of the Shadowmoon clan and wife of Ner'zhul. In the original timeline, Ner'zhul's wife is killed, and her spirit is manipulated by Kil'jaeden to trick Ner'zhul into doing the Legion's bidding. It says here, Rul Khan disagreed with Ner'zhul's use of forbidden magics, the Void, even as he did so under pressure from the Iron Horde. Using her keystone, a forward party of Alliance champions entered Anguish Fortress and destroyed the runes powering the magical barrier around the stronghold. Alongside Velen and Yrel, they raced to the altar of the fortress where Ner'zhul and Grommash were discussing their dark plot to destroy Karabor. As they departed through a portal, Yrel surged forward. Bleeding atop the altar was her sister, Samara. Filled with rage, Yrel vowed to protect her people and crush the Iron Horde. This part's fucking crazy. Listen to this shit. This part's fucking crazy. The next thing that I'm about to read to you is fucking crazy, bro. Crazier than me. With the Dark Star beginning its descent from the sky, defeat seemed all but inevitable. Velen, Yrel, and the Alliance forces were still on their way back from the Anguish Fortress and could only see the looming catastrophe from a distance at Light's Fall. There, Velen silently watched the creature that had once been the savior of his people now become their doom. But as the Dark Star descended, something occurred to Velen. The energies of the Dark Star could be nullified by an equal amount of holy light energy. I've never seen it worded this way before, but what we're told in Chronicle Volume 1 is that the mounting tension between light and void energies ignited a series of catastrophic explosions. However, this is saying that if you have a sufficient amount of holy energy, it just nullifies it, similar to the Ashbringer. Why are we told it causes explosions? I'm confused. You know what does explode? If you combine light with fel, it explodes. If you combine void with fel, it explodes. It says here, there was only one source of light capable of generating such power. Velen's own body. The prophet made his decision without hesitation. He had been a spiritual guide for the Draenei for eons, but now his people would have to go on without him. He would sacrifice himself to nullify the Dark Star. In one final act, he passed his Naru sigil to Yrel. Velen's physical form disappeared, leaving only purest light in his place. In the skies over Karabor, he collided with the void creature, and both he and the Dark Star disappeared. In their place, Kara, the lost Naru, reappeared. Millennia after its weakening, corruption, and exile from the Draenei, the holy being had been restored by Velen's light. It floated from the sky and rejoined the Draenei, a beacon of hope amid the recent darkness that had engulfed their people. Yeah, this is directly what happens with the Alliance quest from WAD. I'm not saying it like it's new. Please understand. If we're talking about the start of the universe from Volume 1, you have to mention Frim's interpretation on it as well about how the Six were brought together to make a new framework. His interpretation, it's relevant, but doesn't mean he's right. Zalatas says something about true light and shadow. Is this true light and shadow with Velen and the Naru? Perhaps. Velen says the research into the void here is commendable, but ultimately futile. How could they possibly know? How could they possibly hope to understand what the Titans did not? The Titans apparently don't understand light and void. And she says, the walls between, the barrier between realms is so very thin here. Something, do you know what were to happen if true light and shadow were to meet here? Like, do you know what would actually happen? And the question of that, well, based on Chronicles, we would assume that it would be an explosion, right? What if that's not what happens? What if that's not true? Maybe the Titans have an interpretation that the light and void can't come together because maybe when the Titans tried to order them together, it blew up. Is it possible that the Titans tried to combine light and void and it failed? Maybe exploded in their face? Or that, you know, they were trying to combine them and couldn't find a way to bring unity between them, and so they deemed them incompatible? Because I just don't know of a situation that I've seen where light and void actually meet. Titans could be confusing void with entropy if we believe the theory that entropy... No, I don't agree with that at all. Because the seventh force is clearly creation. Because they're too prideful to admit their failure, I would agree. Yeah, the seventh force, in my opinion, is very clearly creation. It's Azeroth. I don't agree that it's entropy. The void is the manifestation of entropy. We already have that. Unless, and again, we talked about the possibility that void and death are very related and that the Titans have misinterpreted their connection. Can opposites mix, though? Yes, they can. I don't remember Fel and Arcane, Death, Life either. I think what you guys have to realize is that they're on a spectrum. Fel and Arcane are on the same spectrum of energy. Death and Life are also on the same spectrum. Stop believing that things that are opposites are always antithetical to one another. The main plotline of Dragonflight towards the end was recognizing that a bridge can be made between forces that at first seem in opposition and antithetical to one another. They can be opposite, but it doesn't mean they're not related. The sun and the moon are opposites. Would we say they're not related? Of course not. The sun and the moon are directly related. In this game, they're allegedly twins, right? So we can look at things, order and chaos, and say they're not related. Well, if Sargeras is chaos and all of his brothers and sisters are order, then they're clearly related, right? So how are these things related through one another? I think that's what's important. Don't get it in your mind that just because something seems to be the opposite, that they're completely incompatible. As this is trying to describe, the Naru literally bled out and turned to a void creature. So what it's trying to say to you is that there can be a conversion of energy. Things can convert. A being... Guys, you guys know that Malfurion was bound to the Emerald Dream, same as Ysera? They went to Ardenweald, spent time bound to the Winter Queen, and now they are bound between both the Emerald Dream and Ardenweald. Like, it's proof that things that seem antithetical are not. And the whole point of World of Warcraft's storyline is the mortals coming to realize that these things that seem disparate and disconnected and separate and need to be enemies are not. They're not enemies. They don't have to be. That the truth is that death relies upon life. And guess what? Life relies upon death. Only with proper care and culling can you cultivate a beautiful garden. Things have to die. Things have to rot away. Emerald Dream, Emerald Nightmare, for instance, right? There is an inherent truth to the darkness that they don't want to accept. I don't give a fuck how much you think life is sparkling and pretty and beautiful. It needs rot to fuel it. It needs it. It needs entropy. It needs breaking down. It needs returning to the soil. It needs that. It needs it. So in this way, life cannot exist naturally without death. And this goes for any force. Light cannot exist without dark, nor darkness without light. Disorder cannot exist without order, nor order without disorder. They're contextualized by each other's existence. You understand? You cannot identify what is light without darkness. Therefore, for one to exist conceptually, both must. You understand? Life also encompasses things like parasites, which are not sparkly and pretty. No, they're not. No, they're not. They can be things like the old gods. Right? Let me finish this. It says... Okay, I don't need to read the rest of that. Weird how the Sisters of Life are spread on into other forces and not in their own respective force they have the most power over. Yeah, it's funny how one of them is with the Pantheon of Order, one of them is with the Pantheon of Death, one of them is probably among the Void Lords. We'll see. Let's read about Gorgrond. Life also covers growth, and unchecked growth is cancer, which sure ain't pretty. You guys know that the old gods in almost every instance of them being mentioned and defined by Chronicle, the very opening statements about old gods states that they grow within the worlds of the Great Dark Beyond like cancers. So we're told that, old gods were created by Void Lords that got sent out into the cosmos, but then Chronicle outwardly states that they grow within worlds like a cancer. Oh, interesting. I've seen other things grow out of control and turn into flailing abominations of control and spores and mind control. You guys ever been to Gorgrond? Hey, let's read about it. Deep within the deserts of Gorgrond, the Horde champions reunited with their compatriots in the Alliance. Both factions agreed to work together, if somewhat independently, on the long battles ahead in order to defeat the Blackrocks. I don't know why that is so loud, but thank you very much, Chunks, for becoming a member over on YouTube. Appreciate that. Let me check that real quick. It says here, you're so happy Volume 4 is out? That's sick. Life beings infused with different forces? Perhaps. Old gods are life-infused beings with different forces? They could be. They could be spirit and decay, bro. So if the Naru get all voidy without a source of light, do you think that maybe the old gods that are shot out across the Great Dark Beyond and the seeds of light that were shot out in a similar way are related? Probably. One of the big bases for my ooh, that could have been really bad. For my theories, chat, is this. Ragnoff, thank you very much for the Prime Gaming sub. This is one of my theories, chat. The universe has gone on for too long. Okay? This is like a big Dark Souls kind of thing, right? Where the universe has been put into a state where things are not progressing as they are supposed to. The natural cycles of the cosmos, this universe that we are interacting with, is not functioning properly. And so in this way, I like to think that things like Void Lords doing what they're doing, the old gods being monstrosities as they are, that maybe even the Titans or Sargeras, maybe these things weren't part of the design. Like, maybe they weren't part of the intent in the design. Maybe these are errors. These are things that should not have happened, right? And in this way, maybe we're like the antivirus trying to correct the big design error which is occurring here. I do really like to think that the eldritch abominations that we know only are like that because something happened that made them like that. You know? Like, I think that there are consequences for actions. And I think that the Titans are the ones that have taken the most action and have wrought the most consequences. And I think that stasis and preservation is the answer to that. I think that the Shadowlands and the Emerald Dream were both affected by stasis. At least they were attempting to do that. The Emerald Dream very much so is. It's not even, that's canonically true. And in this way, when I think about the old gods being locked inside of these enchanted prisons with these blue chains holding on to them, which is the most domination-coded shit I've ever fucking seen, by the way, and Loken is apparently the one that crafted those chains, who is the keeper of Norganon. Like, what the fuck? Hello? So these blue orderly chains are holding them in, I'm pretty sure, in stasis. But here's the truth, is that even in stasis, you can still go mad. You can still have bad things happen to you. Just because you're in stasis doesn't mean bad shit can't happen. Looks at Auchindoun and the fucking Draenei. Looks at Illidan and the Illidari. Okay. Looks at the fucking Maghar orcs. Looks at the Emerald Dream. Stasis. It's the reason why one of Khonsu's questions is what protects but also imprisons. Stasis is the answer to that question. There's a reason for that. The Titans are benevolent in that they're attempting to use stasis to try to stop the absolute catastrophe from occurring in the cosmos, but what the Titans don't realize is they don't have control over that. That's not their domain. And if anything, the Titans resisting the unmaking so directly is what will bring it about. In this way, Sargeras' mad crusade is born from order. Chaos is born from the rejection of order, right? And in this way, chaos begins doing its thing. And in this very vein, the Titans create chaos, even if they don't mean to. Oh, I never read you this. Of all of Gromash's allies, Kilrog Deadeye and his Bleeding Hollow clan were the only orcs who had the strength to call the treacherous Tanan jungle their home. Although small in number, they were ruthless in battle. And peddled blood magic, empowering some of their warriors into hulking, dire orcs. They also dealt in poisoned blades laced with hallucinogenic venom, striking fear into the hearts of challengers. So, when I think about blood magic, venomous, hallucinogenic daggers and shit, poisons, I think about, like, life, to be honest. Life blood. Is blood magic... Is blood magic death magic, or is it life magic? What does it count as? Blood magic? Flesh shaping? Is it both? Remember, Vol'jin said the Mogu flesh shaping is like ancient and dark magic. You need blood to live, so mostly life, I think. Remember earlier how we were talking about how a blood sacrificed was used to call down that void Naru from the sky? That's fucking weird. I mean, you don't have to kill the subject. True. Like the blood magic that the Deadeyes did, as their name implies, they'd rip out and sacrifice one of their own eyes so that they could see their death. That's pretty heavily implied to be like death magic then, right? If it can show you how you're gonna die, it's more than likely death magic. Hakar also used it to try and plague the entire world, so I don't think it's fully life. But well, viruses and stuff are I don't think they count as being alive as other things do, but disease and stuff. Bacteria, that's life, but it's also disease, right? It's like, where does the line between life and, or spirit and decay and like life and death, where's that actually drawn? We got on big tangents there, but that's fine, that's what we do. So anyway, we were talking about blood magic, Kilrog, Deadeye, we're gonna move forward from that. We talked about the Holy Narukara, Shazgul, and Direl. Also, it says that Velen foresaw something for Yrel, so he did all that stuff. So, Gorgron, someone asked, they said, what would it be like if we just saw life run rampant and out of control? What would that look like? Let's find out. It says right here, eons ago, Draenor had been covered by a single great jungle called the Evergrowth. All life on the planet was connected, and thus the Evergrowth was all-powerful, for nothing could challenge its supremacy. When the Titan Agrimar visited Draenor, he saw the dreadful imbalance and sought to remedy it by using a portion of his power to give strength and form to the earth itself, creating a massive giant named Grond. Over the millennia in which Grond battled the Evergrowth, the two forces fractured each other into smaller and more diverse beings, and in Gorgrond, to the very day the champions of Azeroth arrived there, two factions remained locked in battle. The rocky mountainous descendants of Grond, known as the Breakers, and the descendants of the Evergrowth, known as the Primals, which teemed with life. Day and night, the Breakers waged war against the Primals, their cataclysmic battles reshaping the face of Draenor. There's more detail on this in Chronicle Volume 2 about what the Spore Mounds and what the Evergrowth was, but they are essentially life and nature versions of the Old Gods, to put it simply. If the Old Gods were beings of decay, then the Spore Mounds would be beings of spirit, connected with life. That is what led to the creation of the orcs. For those who don't know, the flesh that orcs have is alleged to be anyway, from the descendant fighting of the Primals and the Breakers, of the Spore Mounds. And what happened was, the spores of the, the spores of the, Spore Mounds kind of infected the stone and turned them to flesh. Which is very much like a 40k thing, right? Yeah. But also, it shows that just in the same way that it's alleged that that flesh came from the Old Gods, it's also alleged that flesh on Draenor, at least some of it, came from Spore Mounds, which are certainly painted in a much different light than Old Gods. I'll put it that way. They fought for so long it turned them to flesh. I think ogres were the first flesh ones, which then evolved into orcs. Yes. I think you had the Magnaron, which were still primarily stone, but I think they started to develop flesh. I think when you go into Gorgron, you can see descendants of them that are still quite large, but seem to be exhibiting flesh, like on their belly and stuff like that. You also fight Chromog in Blackrock Foundry, which is seemingly a fleshy, ancient Magnaron-related giant of sorts. Now, here's the thing. Is this, and all the... in Chronicle Volume 2, they try to claim that Agrimar went to Draenor by himself. But I'm not so sure about this. First of all, I've talked about this at length before, but if Genesaur are descendants of the Spore Mounds on Draenor, then how did one get on Elunaria, where we find Eonar? To me, that connects them together. When you fight Agrimar in Antorus the Burning Throne, one of the relics he can drop is a Spore Mound seedling. What the fuck? So You're telling me that Agrimar just randomly found this place, and that the place called DRAENOR had no one else influencing it, none of the other Titans had been there, is what you're saying? That's what they're claiming, right? Except there's a problem. Have you guys ever done Heimal? In Heimal, when you fight Imperator Margok, in his room, he has these huge titanic relics that exhibit magics, like almost look like combo magics. Like if you were to take Arcane and combine it with something else, like Arcane and Fire directly somehow, you take that, it's like one of the magics that comes out. It's almost like combo magics. If you actually go and do the fight, I don't know if there's going to be any screenshots or anything of it, but they give him powers of Arcane Wrath, Force Nova, Mark of Chaos via the Arcane, Dominance, Aura, Nether Blast, and then he gets other ones, I guess, depending on which phase. I guess he's casting a lot of the same shit. So let's see, Might of the Crown, Rune of Displacement. He has, yeah, that's right, that's what they are. They're rune stones. They're huge rune stones that have different powers in them. You want to know what one of them has? One of them has Fell power. What the fuck? They're Titan artifacts. They're Titan artifacts. The Gorian Empire, if Agrimar created the giant or whatever and it led to them, that's direct Titan ancestry. They've collected them. And I'm pretty sure Chronicle Volume 2 might even make mention of, or it might have been in Warlords of Draenor. There's something that talks about, I believe that they're like relics that allegedly fell from Grond or something like that. I don't know if that's true. Someone would have to fact check me on that. But it's like, how in the fuck? How is there a Titan relic here that has Fell and Shadow in it? What the shit? As far as we know, they don't use any of that. I guess I just don't know if I believe that Agrimar went out there and did all that by himself, unless someone with an intense mastery of magic and other cosmic forces was either manipulating him or was with him. Because it just, I don't believe that Agrimar did all of this by himself. I don't think I believe that. In the way that the Spore Mounds were just like out of control there, and then the Titans are later found in possession of a Spore Mound seedling, and then ENR has descendants of Spore Mounds on her sanctuary, like, I don't know. That's doesn't sit well with me. That has never sat well with me. Let's see. Let's go to the next section. Return of the Shadow Council. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read you all of this, so listen to this. Return of the Shadow Council. Unbeknownst to Warlord Blackhand and the Iron Horde, another group from Azeroth yet remained in Talador. Separated from the rest of the main strike force, Archmage Khadgar, fuck's sake. Cordana Felsong and the Kirin Tor had established a garrison to run operations hunting down a very different but no less dangerous enemy, Gul'dan and the Shadow Council. Upon arriving in Draenor, the champions of Azeroth had freed him and his warlocks from captivity, closing the dark portal to Azeroth they were powering. But they slipped away as quickly as the Horde and Alliance had liberated them. The champions knew that, given time, the Shadow Council would regroup and resume their schemes. Then the heroes would face two enemies instead of one. Once they saw the Alliance settled in Shadowmoon Valley, Khadgar and Cordana volunteered to hunt the warlock down. Accompanied by a contingent of Kirin Tor and champions, they tracked Gul'dan through the valley and into Talador, where they established a base. But Gul'dan evaded capture at every turn. Garrosh may have foiled his plan to capture the orcs, but the warlock was still determined to bring the Burning Legion to Draenor. With Azeroth's heroes on his trail, Gul'dan dispatched his most trusted agents to prepare for the coming of the Burning Legion. In this way, the Shadow Council could cover the entire length of Draenor while keeping the Horde and Alliance's forces elsewhere. The Shadow Council leader assigned the Ogre Cho'Gall to subjugate a fallen Naru and Oshugun. To Auchindoun in the southeast, Gul'dan sent a sadistic orcish warlock named Terran Gore to drain a Draenei burial ground of its power. Both Terran Gore and Cho'Gall set out on their missions, but neither of them intended on ever reporting back to Gul'dan. They had joined with Gul'dan because the warlock offered them power. and now they had a chance to seize even greater power for themselves. Of the two Warlock agents, Tarongor was the first to find some measure of success in Auchindoun, a sacred burial ground where living Draenei could convene with the spirits of their long-dead ancestors. The power of these souls could be feasted upon and harvested as void energy. Fortunately, as Tarongor and the Shadow Council began their infiltration of the mausoleum, their presence tipped off the Draenei in the area, who brought word to the Khadgar's base in Talador. Yeah, that's not great. To the Khadgar's base. I think that might be meant to say the Kirin Tor's base? Or to Khadgar's base. Anyway, the news was troubling, but Khadgar was as pleased as he was concerned. The Shadow Council had tipped their hand. At last, he had a chance at destroying them. The news was troubling, but Khadgar was pleased. Yeah, I just read that. The Archmage sent a team of Azeroth's Midas champions into Auchindoun, while a group of Alliance heroes worked to secure the upper levels of the mausoleum from further sabotage by Draenei traders. Heroes from the Horde delved deep into the heart of the tomb to take out Tarongor and the Shadow Council warlocks assisting him. By the time Horde champions located Tarongor, he had already consumed the souls of many Draenei, because the Draenei had been keeping the souls of their fallen inside of a fucking crystal, bolstering his fearsome powers. Still, the Horde bested the Warlock in battle. Tarongor would not be so easily dealt with, however. He was surrounded by a massive source of power and began drawing on it quickly to begin the fight anew. Fortunately, this plan backfired, and the massive surge of energy he tried to take in knocked him from the platform into Auchindoun's depths, from which he did not emerge. The mausoleum was safe, but Khadgar, Cordana, and their allies had been set back to square one. With Tarongor gone, they had no leads on the Shadow Council. They would have to wait until the Warlocks revealed themselves again. It was of little consequence, for the heroes' attentions were required elsewhere. The Iron Fleet had made landfall on the Orunai coast, and they were bent on conquering northern Talador. Let me read to you this section on the Everbloom Wilds real quick. Everbloom Wilds. It says, unfortunately, the champions of the Horde and the Alliance could not hold out in hostile land forever without some measure of resupply. The Magi of the Kirin Tor worked hard to create and maintain a small number of portals that led back to Azeroth. These portals were not nearly large enough to allow for the mass movement of troops, but they did permit the heroes to establish some supply lines with their allies back home. One of the supply lines was set up within a small Gorgrond region called the Everbloom Wilds. From the outside, this untamed land seemed like the perfect place to establish a base. It was easily defensible, surrounded by mountains on all sides, and free from enemies. The Kirin Tor would have only one foe to contend with, one which they had not yet encountered, a species of primal creatures known as the Botany. Though the Kirin Tor felt themselves capable of handling the threat, matters took a turn when the Botany attacked the Kirin Tor camp, corrupting many of the mages therein. To make matters worse, they stormed through a portal to Azeroth, where the Kirin Tor's last line of defense was tasked with preventing them from reaching Stormwind City. Ultimately, a group of Alliance champions were called in to reinforce the mages and defeat the Botany. The ordeal was costly, and it made it clear that the Iron Horde was not the only threat the Alliance and Horde had to protect Azeroth against. This is nice hints towards the Botany. They're fucking terrifying. They basically have spore magic that goes around and corrupts things and takes over its mind. It's what happened to the Kirin Tor. It's fucking terrifying. I wanted to take note of a couple things. On the map of Draenor, there is what appears to be, anyway, a sea giant right there. And I'm a little confused about that. I didn't think those existed there. And I'm just wondering, like, why they're there. I know about Brackenspore, but that's not what that is. So I don't really know. If they had sea giants, I guess I wasn't aware of that. I kind of wonder where life originated from in this place. If it was the volcanoes, if it was from the ocean, if it was both. Didn't sea giants come from the Titans? That's what they say. That's what they say. there were also 4 thematic corners. There are also Kraken on this map. 4 thematic corners, one for the Apexis, with their symbol that looks like a moon and sun. One for the Orcs. One for the Ogres, and one for the Draenei. I don't know if... I don't know if this art is on... It's not. Okay, I kind of figured it wouldn't be. The art of it is not on the... on the website. That's okay, though. His people were born at the beginning when the great forgers squeezed the light from the enormous ball of fire that would become DRAENOR. Yeah, that's interesting. The enormous ball of fire that would become DRAENOR. I think it's pretty interesting how, as far as I'm aware, the orcs were the first mortal race to do Mak-Gara. That's like one of their specific like things from their history and heritage, right? You want to know what's funny? Is in Chronicle, it says that Sargeras and Agramar. What was it? I lost my train of thought there. Sorry. That map looks more like Outland. Well, Outland is DRAENOR. Aren't all planets born from explosions, fire? I think technically. Sargeras and Agramar did Mak-Gara. That's in Chronicle. They have one-on-one single combat, which is Titan Mak-Gara, as far as I understand it. So that this is the place where the orcs came from is pretty fascinating to me. Draenosh means Heart of Draenor. Draenor is named by the Draenei. I wonder if it could have had any other names in its history. I guess the Arakoas called it the Sunstone, didn't they? Wait. Forgers squeezed the light from the enormous ball of fire that would become DRAENOR. Is that a reference to them doing something with Azeroth? Dude, maybe I'm not even realizing it. And fucking Azeroth was inside of that world too. Yo, imagine. We didn't even know it. Azeroth was inside DRAENOR at one point too. That'd be fucking crazy. That'd be nuts. But I don't think there's proof of that. But the idea of the forgers squeezing the light from the enormous ball of fire that would become DRAENOR. That's... Why didn't Sargeras kill Agramar? That's a good question. He did let him get away. He could have done it. Well, he did kill Agramar later. Maybe he was trying to bait the Pantheon. I'm confused how those planets work with the core. I mean, when a Titan is inside, I don't know. Sargeras whooped his ass. Oh yeah. Made him look like a fucking little bitch. Which is pretty sick, not gonna lie. So this next section I want to read to you is Shattrath City. This is just a small portion, and I want to read it because I think it talks about kind of a nice lesson. It says, after years of regret, fate and circumstance saw fit to return Murad to another Shattrath and another Horde siege. It would be a test of the Vindicator's resolve. Silently, Murad feared he would give in to his anger once again. He and Yrel were among the champions who'd embarked with Duratan for the final charge on the Iron Fleet, and together they engaged Blackhand. Murad was furious with the Blackrock chieftain, and for a moment, anger overcame him. This time, however, he bent all his strength, rage, and resolve toward protecting his allies. And I think that's a very Sargeras and almost Anduin-esque thing right there. Taking your rage, your strength, your resolve, and using the rage that may have once cost you to do the right thing. To protect the ones that you care about. The Titans being inside a planet, is it a prison or a womb? I think it's more of a prison. It could be both, but I think it's more of a prison. I don't know if they're really supposed to be inside of planets. you know? Spires of Iraq. I want to read this little part here. With the shattered hands subdued for the time being, the champions of Azeroth and the outcasts turned next to the High Arakoa, who were led by the arrogant High Sage Virix. As the ruler of Skyreach, she had taught her followers, the adherents of Rukmar, to believe that the Arakoa were the highest form of life in all existence. Though these adherents claimed the source of their incredible power came from Rukmar herself, the truth was far more simple. Virix's zealots had excavated and repaired a weapon of unfathomable power, long buried by their ancestors, the breath of Rukmar, which channeled magic and the power of the sun into an energy beam that could decimate entire settlements. With this weapon, the High Sage bent her will toward incinerating the land surrounding Skyreach, and any inferior race that dared oppose the establishment of her new Arakoan empire off the face of Draenor. It's pretty fucking metal. But the main thing here is that they developed a weapon, or they found a weapon that could channel the power of the sun into an energy beam. I just think that's pretty fascinating. I think Uldum has similar things. I thought it was a simple mirror. Apparently it's an ancient relic. Something real special about it, I guess. Magic mirror or something like that. I just wanted to go over that the concept of channeling the power of the sun into a beam that can be used as like a super weapon. I was gonna say that's like that almost is like a Titan kind of thing to do, to be honest, right there. And they were so very arrogant. So very arrogant. Something about Nagrand here. Garrosh was furious with Thrall. It was Thrall. This is more of a question than anything. It was Thrall who had first appointed him war chief, who had trusted him with the fate of the Orcish people and the Horde as a whole. If they were to fight, they would fight at the Stones of Prophecy, at the place where it had all begun. The Stones of Prophecy, at the place where it had all begun. Can you give me a refresher on what that's referring to? Is that a Warcraft reference? The Stones of Prophecy? At the place where it had all begun? What is that referring to? I think I forgot. Or didn't know. Whatever that is. There's a similar device in Revendreth too. In Sinfall? You think so? Is that where he found Garrosh in TBC? Could be. Could be. His ears reminds me of Helia. Sorry for the late answer, but I got a new image. I had to use a new image capture tool. Oh, sea giants in Helia? Sure, sure. Yeah, they kind of have that like scale. Naga kind of looks similar in that way. The Lord of the Deep. It's where the Maghar orcs lived in Outland. Got it. Okay, so I can remove that one. That was more of a question than anything. So, okay, listen to this shit. This is about the powers of the Void on Draenor. This is still Warlords of Draenor. Unbeknownst to much of Draenor, even to the forces of the Iron Horde, yet another threat was at play in Nagrand. At Gul'dan's behest, the Shadow Council warlock Cho'Gall had continued to search for sources of power that could aid the Legion on Draenor. His search led him underground to a network of unholy caverns that snaked beneath the surface of the world. I would have loved to explore that more. Here dwelled the Pale, a group of orcs who worshipped the Void Lords. Cho'Gall scryed to study these Pale, and in doing so discovered the source of their power, a fallen Naru in Nagrand. So these motherfuckers worship the Void Lords and are getting their power from a Void Naru. Like, what the fucking shit? If that doesn't suggest the possibility of a connection between the Naru and the Void Lords just inherently through the light and void stuff, then I don't know what does. Okay. I'm gonna read all of this. So great was the void within this Naru that the Pale had used it to awaken a great bone worm, which the Horde champions had slain during their time in Frostfire. Cho'Gall reported these developments back to Gul'dan, who dispatched him on a mission to Oshu'gun to subjugate the fallen Naru and harness its power for the Shadow Council. Though the orcs of Nagrand considered Oshu'gun a sacred mountain, it was far from a true mountain of earth and stone. It was the overgrown crash site of the Genadar, the dimensional fortress that had first brought the Draenei to this world. When the Genadar first crashed on Draenor, the Naru Kure became tangled within the wreckage. It urged the Draenei to leave it there, as Kure's light was slowly fading, and it would soon enter a void state in which it would only accumulate dark energy. Time passed as Kure remained trapped within the remains of the fortress, and indeed this fallen Naru was corrupted by the void. While the Draenei stayed away from the wreckage of their vessel, the orcs knew no such wisdom. The Naru's dark energy attracted the spirits of fallen orcs, who were in turn suffused with light energies that had lingered in the Genadar. The light granted these spirits wisdom, which they in turn passed to the shaman who would visit the mountain, which the orcs named Oshigun. In search of the fallen Naru beneath Oshigun, Cho'Gall sought out and employed the Pale, who allowed him to enter their innermost sanctum, where lay the decaying Naru. It was amid this scheme, however, that the Horde and Alliance, still battling the Warsong in Nagrand, were alerted to multiple elemental disturbances. They had recently dealt with the Warsong clan's Dark Shaman, who were using their power to channel the Void, which is interesting because I thought Dark Shaman used Decay. So then you've got the Void, in there as well, opening portals from the twisting nether to feed the Void Lord Invalidus. Though the heroes had successfully slain the creature and closed the portals, they received word of more dark forces at work. The elemental Furies had called the Farseer Drekthar for aid after Gordog, which is a name, the Great Earthen Fury, had gone missing. But while investigating this matter, the elements sent heroes of the Horde and Alliance, a vision of Cho'Gall finding the fallen Naru beneath Oshigun and betraying his master. As the champions of Azeroth fought their way through Oshigun, they found that the Pale had enslaved the elements to their will. Not even Drekthar could reverse what the Pale had done to the elemental spirits. Those enthralled by the Pale had to be put down. Fighting their way to the core of the Sacred Mountain, the champions came upon Gordog, the missing elemental fury they sought. With this bitter discovery, Farseer Drekthar bade the heroes free him from the heavy yoke the Pale had placed on him and retrieve his heart, so it might one day kindle a new earthen fury. After delivering a swift death to Gordog, the heroes continued on to end the work of Cho'Gall in the Pale in Nagrand. But while the heroes had been distracted with the Pale and enslaved elemental spirits, Cho'Gall had convened with the fallen Naru and Oshigun. In the span of a horrible moment, there's a grammatical error there, there's a comma and a period right there. In the span of a horrible moment, he was filled with the secrets of the void and its maddening emptiness. Interesting. Filled with forbidden knowledge and near limitless power, he turned toward unyielding conquest. Cho'Gall started by transforming Kure into a void god, a being even more powerful than the Dark Star. This was a creature that could cause untold destruction. Decimatus. Fortunately, which is so lame, champions of the... That's such a lame name. They're all so lame. Fortunately, champions of the Horde and Alliance had just breached the innermost sanctum of Oshigun, and were ready to face down the creature. With great effort, their combined forces narrowly defeated Decimatus, but Cho'Gall had fled the mountain upon glimpsing the heroes. After leaving Oshigun newly empowered, the warlock ventured to the ancient ogre capital of Hymal, where he sought magical rune stones to further enhance his power. These are the rune stones I was talking about with Imperator Margok. The ogre's leader, the dread Imperator Margok, had entered an alliance with Grommash and the Iron Horde early in their rise, to avoid a war that would surely see the ogres crushed in an uneven battle. Cho'Gall knew he stood little chance of conquering the combined might of Hymal and the Iron Horde, so he allowed himself to be captured by the city's guardians and taken into a prison at the heart of the city. There he bided his time, waiting for the right moment to summon his Pale army and take what he had come for. So there was a lot of void stuff going on with Cho'Gall. Another thing, as the heroes prepared to fight in Hymal, they were surprised to see Cho'Gall imprisoned in a cell among other combatants, but they had little time to investigate as they ascended into the arena above. That's very true. That is pretty much exactly how it felt. In the Colosseum, they felled any challenger who came against them until Kargath Bladefist recognized the Alliance heroes from their prior battle in Iraq. Eager to defeat them, they fight, Kargath loses. In an unexpected turn of events, Cho'Gall took advantage of the distraction in the Colosseum to spring his trap. Since the champions had disposed of all the arena's challengers, only the Colosseum guards remained to keep safe Imperator Margok. Cho'Gall easily escaped from his cell and opened a portal into the center of the arena, challenging Margok. Cho'Gall dispatched the Emperor's guards as his pale orc forces crawled over the walls of the city, intent on taking Heimdall for themselves. With them came the many elemental beings they had twisted to their will, and I think that roughly happens in the raid. Invalidus, the Eater of Arguments. The skin looked kind of the same also. Could the Titans just be mortals that were raised up like how Zero became a constellation? You mean Ysera? Perhaps, yes. That is something that we've discussed, yeah. In the Amber Ward, you realign a bunch of mirrors to harness raw light, and it's why that whole area is scorched and ashen. No, I think the whole area is scorched and ashen because the Naru descended upon it and scorched the land, I thought. As you, the player, use it to attack Castle Nathria because the Venthyr can't really survive in it, the sunlight to their vampirism, in effect. I think the light had breached the sky in Revendreth, and I think they were kind of keeping Revendreth in check from the way that I understood it from Shadowlands and the books and stuff like that, because the Naru had been very upset at Death for not knowing its place, right? So the Naru came to Revendreth to basically call for the outcasting of the Dreadlords, which is exactly what the Dreadlords wanted, apparently. That was exactly their plan. So they drew the ire of the light and used it as a ploy to leave the Shadowlands. It's very clever. But that's why the Ember Ward is scorched, because the Naru came and did that. But then, yes, it would appear that the mirrors are also able to be utilized in a similar way, perhaps in an attempt to understand the light's power over them or whatever, right? The next thing is, fighting their way to Margok's throne room, the heroes came upon the Imperator himself. The leader was highly guarded, and himself presented a difficult opponent with powerful magic, but they ultimately defeated him and all his forces. Unfortunately, this presented Cho'Gall with the exact opportunity he'd been waiting for. As the weakened Imperator struggled to remain standing, Cho'Gall burst into the throne room, ensnaring Margok in a field of dark magic. Drawing power from the runestones, the titanic runestones that I was talking about, he channeled their incredible energy through the Imperator, killing him in the act. But I love how they just gloss over this. They don't talk about what the powers of these runestones were or anything like that. The champions of the Alliance were swift, but the Warlock had been faster. Cho'Gall was a near insurmountable foe to a host of heroes who were already worn down from a series of intense fights. His void powers presented a challenge the champions had hardly expected to face when they embarked on the journey to Heimdall, right? Because you didn't set the story up properly in the game. And you know that. Through their combined efforts, however, Cho'Gall fell as the others had done. Though Grommash escaped to fight another day, the Alliance and their comrades emerged victorious in Heimdall, deposing 3 major foes as well as the Shattered Hand in the Ogre's Gorian Empire from Grommash's arsenal. The next thing is going to be about Garona and how she was controlled by Gul'dan. Garona did not volunteer her life as an agent for the Shadow Council. In fact, she never had a choice. The Warlock had forced her to become a killer, controlling her mind with fell magic. Now Gul'dan armed her with a fell blade and commanded her to hunt down Khadgar. Right? She has to do this. After returning the items to Khadgar at the tower in Talador, the Archmage was unable to overcome Gul'dan's magical influence on Garona. Khadgar turned to the champions to instead infiltrate a Shadow Council hideout in Shadowmoon Valley and retrieve another potentially useful artifact, an Orb of Dominion. So to come back to this.
Wow, C4.
Wow.
Boom, boom, revelations.
Thanks, Zevgora. I appreciate that so much. Thanks for the 18-month resub. Year and a half. Thank you. The Orb of Dominion, which Khadgar theorized was being used to mind control many of Gul'dan's agents. Does it ever explain what the fuck this is? It's allegedly fell magic, and he's controlling Garona's mind with it. I know that this happened. I was aware of this. But with the context that we have now, how the fuck is he doing this? Is there a connection between fell and domination? Dominion? Doesn't Yogg-Saron have a spell called, like, Dominion? Dominion's in one of his spells, but I can't remember what it is, but I just thought this was interesting. Controlling her mind with fell magic. Maybe it can disrupt a soul just in the same way that Order can? Okay. I think I want to read this. This is in Tanan Jungle. It was at this point that Gul'dan brought the fell blood of Manaroth back into the conversation. He offered Grommash and all the desperate orcs assembled within the camp one last chance at power. By drinking the blood of the Pit Lord, they would indeed be bound to the will of the Burning Legion. But at least they would have a chance at defeating the champions of Azeroth, as well as the factions of Draenor they had brought over to their side. Grommash flatly refused. To him, defeat would be far better fate than one bound to the will of demons. Unfortunately, Grommash was alone in his convictions. Kilrog Deadeye in his clan of Bleeding Hollow orcs betrayed Grommash. As Gul'dan incapacitated the former war chief and locked him away, Deadeye and his followers drank the Pit Lord's blood. In an instant, their bodies were corrupted, their minds clouded with rage. Once the ritual was over, the corrupted orcs pledged their loyalty to Gul'dan. Under his command, they would be known as the Fell Horde, the supreme warriors of the Burning Legion. As Khadgar, Garona, and the champions witnessed Deadeye's fell empowerment, Khadgar bade them return to the main army and tell leaders to marshal their forces. They had to invade the Tanan jungle and strike the Fell Horde quickly before they could summon the Legion to Draenor. If that could occur, Azeroth would be in greater danger than ever before. I think there's a connection between light and domination. Oh, for sure. I mean, when you look at fuck's sake. When you look at Oathbinder, I think that there's some significant evidence of that. Yeah. Have you found any new info or big changes in lore yet? I mean, we've gone over so much over the last 7.5 hours that to answer, yes. Yes, there's been some things and we haven't even got to the craziest ones yet. We're still in Warlords of Draenor. One thing I wanted to point out here, the Fell Blight. From the throne of Kill Jaden, Gul'dan summoned forth the Fell Blight. When I think of Blight, it's something I normally associate with the Plague and Death, and honestly Maldraxxus. The Fell Blight, a river of fell energy to erupt from the mountainside. Massive spikes pierced Hellfire Citadel, and the land became as twisted and corrupt as the Fell Horde itself. Sensing they would not make much headway through the jungle, champions from both factions found an unlikely ally in the Master Shipwright of the Iron Horde, etc. Whatever. Who cares about that? It's just the Fell Blight. Let's see. Through all these preparations, Khadgar remained singularly focused on infiltrating the Citadel before Gul'dan could summon Archimonde in the full might of the Burning Legion. Ahead of the battle, he tasked champions with... I don't know if that was really even the plan, to be honest. Ahead of the battle, he tasked champions with retrieving Tomes of Chaos, ancient volumes of fell knowledge which he feared could empower future warlocks to Gul'dan's same aspirations. While the conflict with the Legion and its devotees seemed unavoidable in any universe or timeline, Khadgar hoped to at least blunt future incursions by stealing this forbidden knowledge. The demons transcending time and space is so fucking confusing to me. I think, obviously, the implication is that by traversing the Twisting Nether, the Twisting Nether seems to be able to take you to any fucking where in time and space. Which means that not only can you travel coordinate-wise to another place, you can travel in time. You can definitely travel through time. It's a big thing in WoW. And so sometimes when we have situations like when Gul'dan rips open the rift in the sky, and you see during the fight Argus through the rift, it makes me wonder if we're really looking at Argus at the same time. Is this really... Are the events... What I'm suggesting is that perhaps things have happened at different points in time that are kind of that bridge to reality that we don't maybe even realize are at a different point in time. I think conceptually that's kind of confusing, but whatever. I don't know. Let's see. I'm gonna read you this whole page because I think it's fucking cringe. And this is the end of Warlords of Draenor. You have to hear this. The Rangarian Frostwolf forces had at last cleared the Fell Horde. the Fel Horde from the main entry point to Tanaan Jungle, and they joined their forces with those of Azeroth. The combined armies fought their way through surrounding orc encampments, penetrating Hellfire Citadel itself. I remember this very vividly. Within the Citadel, the fighting was unlike anything the champions had yet faced, as the brutal Fel-empowered orcs were reinforced by Arakoa and warlocks of the Shadow Council, including Iskar, who I'm pretty sure we fucking saved before. Though it cost the Horde and Alliance many lives, Azeroth's champions defeated Kilrog Deadeye, but still, more enemies stood in their path, including those they had thought long dead. Among them was the Shadow Council warlock Terran Gore, who had fallen into the mausoleum of Auchindoun during his battle with the heroes of Azeroth. And then when you find him, he's in this room that seems to maybe have been bored through to this underground, seemingly kind of like underground river of souls or something that he is now supping upon. It's pretty fucked up that Terran Gorfin ends up there. He falls down Auchindoun and he ends up here? What the fuck? That doesn't sit well with me. I don't know what it's like garbage disposal type shit. I don't like that. It's like weird. Throw it into the sewers and who knows where the fuck it even comes out. It's the same room where Manaroth is in TBC. Interesting. Maybe they were after the power of the souls that was running there. Possible that, there's shit that was disposed down there, maybe. Magtheridon, sorry, not Manaroth. That's Magtheridon's lair. Yeah, could be the same room. Interesting. So let me continue this. While the champions moved on to greater concerns, the warlock gorged himself on the Draenei souls who dwelled there, becoming a bloated abomination known as Gorefiend. The fearless heroes took up arms once again, however, and slayed the foul creature anew. Fighting their way into the heart of the Citadel, the champions of Horde and the Alliance discovered Grommash Hellscream being tortured by a Fel Lord Zakun. After they freed the former war chief, Grommash offered little by way of thanks, asking only that the champions leave him. Yeah, it was weird. He was trying to kill us the whole time. It was very weird. The heroes continued on, battling their way to the pinnacle of Hellfire Citadel, where Gul'dan awaited them. Upon seeing the heroes, he reanimated the remains, of the Pit Lord Manaroth to fight in his stead and fled through a portal. Even after dispatching the reanimated demon, the heroes despaired. Gul'dan had escaped and no doubt continued his evil work while the heroes were distracted. This is so bad. Khadgar transported the champions to the ruins of the Dark Portal, where they witnessed Gul'dan create a new, smaller portal. The Black Gate. And this is exactly what happened in the game. It is so jarring and stupid. We've talked about this before. I'm pretty sure that Manaroth was supposed to be the last boss of that raid. And that would have made way more sense. You fight Magtheridon in TBC, you fight Manaroth in WoD. Archimonde was not supposed to be here. This was an ass pull by Blizzard, and they're paying the fucking piper for it in this writing. This is fucking awful. They're literally describing word for word this jarring sequence of events that actually happened in the game that was potentially the worst ending to an expansion ever. It's real bad. Okay, and I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it's really bad. It says right here, out of this new gateway stepped the Demon Lord Archimonde, flanked by his lieutenants Asgalor, Anetheron, and Khazrogal. The heroes were caught off guard and in disarray, right, because it didn't make any fucking sense. With the battle unexpectedly moved, it had scattered their offensive positions. The Demon Lord was among the more powerful enemies than they had ever faced. It should say that they had ever faced, and they would have to fight him without their frontline defenses. Yeah, because it was completely unplanned. Still, the forces of Azeroth and Draenor managed to rally, fighting with an aplomb that knew neither boundaries nor factional conflicts. It's so cringe, dude. They were soon stunned to find Grommash among their number, wordlessly fighting for the freedom of his people and for vengeance against Gul'dan. Though the champions were suspicious of his intentions, It was clear that the Orc was a powerful warrior, and the losses they'd already taken meant they needed every fighter to repel the Legion. It's so bad. The former war chief fought. We should have fought. You know what, chat? Fuck it. We shouldn't have fought. Manaroth shouldn't have been the last boss. It should have been fucking Grommash. That's who the last boss should have been. A Manaroth corrupted Grommash Hellscream. That's who we should have got to fight, and that's not what we got. And that's a fucking crying shame. Because in my opinion, Archimonde was supposed to be one of the final bosses in Legion. We fought Gul'dan, we fought Kil'jaeden, we didn't fight Archimonde? Are you fucking kidding me? They ass-pulled him for the end of Warlords, totally. They did not bro, he dropped an item that connected him to the Nightmare. Archimonde should have been the final boss of the Emerald Nightmare. Fucking Xavius. Fuck, dude. They could have done something way cooler. It just should have been, should have been different, bro. Archimonde should not have died in this manner. It's so bad. Let me just continue because there's more. The former war chief fought side by side with Duratan and the Frostwolves, Yrel and the Rangari, who were all his enemies, by the way. Azeroth's Horde and Alliance stood back to back in defense of their shared world and their new allies on Draenor. All who were there gave everything that they had, even as so bad. Even as Archimonde pulled the heroes into the twisting nether. By the time the dust settled, Archimonde had been defeated. The Legion would not be invading Azeroth this day. Listen to this. Although he was on the brink of death, Archimonde knew that so long as Gul'dan lived, the Burning Legion would have a way to Azeroth. So it seems to me that the truth is that the only fucking reason that the Legion was here in the first place was trying to get Gul'dan back to Azeroth. That's what this was. The Legion wasn't trying to do a full-blown invasion. I don't think that was really their plan. I think they just really needed to get Gul'dan. And what happens in the next sections in Legion, I feel like it's kind of what happened. It was all just to get Gul'dan. They ass-pulled Archimonde, and we should have fought Grommash. They had been positioning him as the fucking big bad of the expansion the entire fucking time. And yes, we've fought the Legion before. We've beat Archimonde before. It's not even that cool to fight Archimonde as the final boss. It didn't make any fucking sense. So, yeah, I get a little irritated about that because I think the end of WAD could have been sick. But they fucking ruined it. They trashed it.